I'd like to start today by asking all of you to imagine living in the harsh environments of the wilderness, having to survive, gather food, hunt. Um, for a long time, our ancestors did just that, but they didn't always do it alone. Um, the phrase man's best friend refers to a lot more than just the cute, cuddly dogs we're used to today. For generations, dogs were used for hunting. They were used for protection, and more commonly today, they're used as companions. My love and my interest for dogs has led to my intensive research about the origins of dogs, the domestication process, how they're used today, and today I'd like to share with you some of the things that I've learned about the history of dogs and how they're used today as service animals. First, I would like to look at the origin of dogs and how the evolution was shaped by nature and nurture. Domestication of dogs we know today are all a product of selective breeding, both natural and some selective. For a long time, dogs were theorized to have derived from parts of Asia, mainly eastern parts of Asia, because that's what's known as the origin of wolves. So most of the purest forms of wolves come from Asia. A study conducted by molecular biologist Peter Salvainen from the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden, looked at the molecular DNA of dogs. I know a lot of us are kind of familiar with DNA or genetic DNA, which is DNA that comes from both parents. So as you guys know, humans have 46 chromosomes. Half and half is from one parent and the other parent. Mitochondrial DNA comes from just the mother. So this is the type of DNA that was looked at in dogs to determine the lineage of the dogs and where they came from. So mitochondrial DNA allows them to go further into the genetic roots of the animal, allowing them to see more clearly what kind of ancestors they came from. Matthew Binns, who is the head of genetics at the Animal Health Trust in Newmark, UK, added that it appears from this study that 96% of all dogs today are derived from 3 females, wolves. So the study did find that dogs come from eastern parts of Asia and that they are derived from gray wolves specifically. Thanks to the study on DNA, we can see the origins of dogs, and when it comes to dogs, breeding took place to domesticate the wolves to give us an advantage during hunting. According to Dr. Hurst, when an interesting or useful trait was identified in a wolf, they were bred with other wolves to keep that trait dominant. So to keep that trait, they would mix 2 wolves that had the exact same traits or similar traits, and they kept certain similarities grouped together. So different dogs that had different traits were kept in one pile to compare to other ones, as to keep them kind of separate and dominant in their own species. Understanding dogs also helps us recognize the different purposes that they serve. Today, we have a lot of dogs, a lot of breeds of dogs. A majority of them were bred to hunt. So a lot of dogs with smaller sizes were still meant to hunt, but they were meant to hunt in different fashions. So in UK, there is a lot of hunting for gophers and small rodents, small animals like that. So a lot of smaller dogs were bred to be able to go into foxholes and trenches that bigger dogs were not able to get into. The animals still have that hunting instinct, but they are not as big, and some not as strong as obviously the bigger animals. According to the ADA, dogs today can serve multiple purposes. Dogs are individually trained to work with an individual that has difficulty, whether it's from a disorder or disease. Dogs can be trained to serve a specific purpose to help them out, and those are called service dogs. There are different types of working dogs. Some are service dogs, some are emotional help dogs, which are not considered service animals through the FDA and are not necessarily protected, but still serve an important purpose. A majority of the dogs that are trained today are actually trained by inmates. So a lot of the programs take place in jails, and they not only help the person that they are delivered to after they're trained, but while they're being trained, they're actually helping their trainers as well. For a lot of inmates, it's important to have an emotional connection. It helps them rehabilitate. It makes the likelihood of them to reoffend once they have served their sentence reduced. And a lot of these programs are spoken highly of by jails. The officers that work in the jails, the correctional officers and wardens really like these types of programs that allow their inmates to have a connection with something other than themselves. And because they are so isolated in jails, it's good for them to have an emotional attachment. So understanding the origin of dogs helps us to know the different things that they are able to do today. It helps us understand where they come from and why the bond with humans is so strong. Understanding that they have gone through a long period of change, a long period of reading, helps us understand why they are considered man's best friend. Thank you.
All right, Liana, what did you think?
I thought it was actually very well done. He had a good thesis statement that was nice and clear, a good introduction, kind of preview into what he was going to talk about. He did bring in some good supporting evidence and facts brought into it. Kind of smooth transitions going from the origin and how they were bred and leading up to how they were studied, leading into how they're even used today for disabilities and even inmates helping them, and kind of tying it all back together at the end as well. And good visuals for that as well.
Did you like the visuals?
I did like the visuals.
Okay.
I like dogs, so pictures of dogs.
Yeah, pictures of dogs make you happy. I see it as an easy way to appeal to an audience. Nice audience analysis. Let's talk about something that people can relate to and that they enjoy. I thought that, I'm going to agree with most of what Liana says. I think that you had a nice attention device, a clear identification of what the topic was. You've got a justification for talking about it that I think could be a little bit more. It was a little confusing. It felt like I got 3 previews at the beginning, because at one point you're going to talk about what makes them man's best friend, and then there was another one where we had like a historical thing that they're talking about, and then you finally get to the goal of the speech, and then you have a different preview. In the body of the speech, it's topical, it's easy to follow. I did think that sometimes the transitions were a little bit sharp. For example, we got to the training by the inmates, and that was like in the service dog section. That was, I don't want to say it was a sharp right, but it was a quick right. You need to maybe give us a little bit more lead in on those things, but it was a minor quibble here. The supporting material is pretty solid. You You've got the DNA stuff that you're talking about. The one visual with the mitochondrial DNA stuff is probably a little bit more detailed than we need. I mean, I appreciate the way you're trying to distinguish it so we could identify the origins of the animals, but all that information isn't going to be anything that anybody's going to use or remember. Keep it basic. I think that could probably have been reduced a little bit. The reference to all the different kinds of hunting dogs that you had, I think you could have used a couple more examples. You mentioned in Great Britain, you know, that they hunt animals that are burrowing type animals, that sort of thing. I don't remember that you identified particular breeds that would have been used in those circumstances. That might have made sense, so we could people could be able to relate to that. Gesundheit. You know, like I said, I think that the visuals were fine. I would have liked a little bit more citation of information on the section where the dogs are being trained, or the service dogs are being trained, because that seems to me to be a very interesting idea here. And you said the majority of them. I don't know that that's true. I'm not saying that it's not true, but I want to know why you think it's true, and I don't really get a source on that. I do have the pictures, which I thought was kind of inspiring. The idea that these guys who are, here they're troubled. There's a reason that they're in jail, and they need something that's going to help them normalize and become better people. And what better than having to work with a dog? I think I kind of like that idea. That makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of a hopeful thought there. And your delivery is really solid. I mean, you are talking to us the whole time. You're not dependent on your notes. You know what it is you want to say to us, and you do a good job engaging with the audience and looking at us while you're speaking, and that kind of thing really helps a presentation. All right, I'm going to stop there. Thank you.